If you think about it carefully, how has Dead by Daylight changed since the very launch of the game? Just try to answer. I guess you said something about new killers, survivors, maps added throughout these years, or maybe countless adjustments made to balance both sides, but my question remains the same. How has Dead by Daylight actually changed? Look, from always said, I don't consider anything as such. There are other adjustments, once again, to the existing primordial form of the game, and if I were to find the answer to my own question, I think I wouldn't manage to. From the very beginning to this moment, what killer has to do is to find survivors, chase them down, hook, and eventually kill, of course. What survivors need to do is to repair 5 gens and open the gates. Meanwhile, of course, struggling with handling the killer, but it goes without saying. And so, over all of these 6 years, we have the same concept, which is okay, it's fine. But it's one thing to keep the core of the game, adding some more options of how to achieve your main task. For survivors to survive, obviously, and so this process requires only 2 steps. And no mechanic of this has been reworked in any way. Once again, there's been only adjustments. So it's one thing to keep this core, but adding some more options of how to achieve your goal, and it's quite another thing to keep this core basically untouched. New content schedule added to the game is not exactly that vector that Dead by Daylight needs, because it extends it in some way, but it doesn't extend it in another one. I mean, it gets more layers upon it, but what hides under them is what has to be reworked, I would say. Yeah, new content is not exactly what the game needs, and more importantly, not exactly what the players need. For me, for the player that has like this amount of time spent on this game, new killer or any kind of new content, it doesn't attract me, you know? If you're new to this game or don't have as many hours as I do, it might not seem as worthwhile talking about, but for me it is. Because not that long ago, a friend of mine really wanted to play with me together, and I reluctantly agreed, though I initially knew that I wouldn't have any fun or personal interest in it, because I already got bored of this game a long time ago, and you know what? I was right. I didn't have any fun, it was boring. One game was played, I got incredibly bored, but I didn't say anything particularly bad about it. But after the second one, not only I got bored, but also kinda mad for several reasons. First, why do I play it if I don't enjoy it? And second, why don't I enjoy it if I really want to? Once upon a time, I was literally addicted to this game, spending just enormous amount of time and having fun nonetheless. A couple of years later, it is now, it's just unbearable to play for me. And now, I want to discuss not the problem itself, but how it could be otherwise. So, in order to do that, I believe the best way is to make a comparison to other similar games. I bet you well know them. First is gonna be Friday the 13th, the game. This one is most related to Dead by Daylight, from all that only exists or existed. Next, not long ago released Prop Night. Much more different, but you can clearly see the similarities between them. 4 survivors, 1 killer, and some other stuff. And third one I'll highlight, it might be odd to you, but it's gonna be last year The Nightmare, which is already dead of course, but there is something to talk about it. Returning to the core gameplay, one thing I believe that could make Dead by Daylight better is a variety, because it lacks it. Survivors always have only 2 stages of progress, repairing the 5 generators and second, opening the gates. Very straightforward, don't you think? Let's look at what the Friday the 13th has to offer, and what more actually. You can leave the map with the car, which you need to fuel, finding a canister in advance, and also keys that can be in one of the drawers in some house. It stimulates you to loot them, running from one to another, and only this by itself is already more interesting than mere 90-second AFK sitting near a gen that doesn't even require any tool, blueprint or power supply to function. Then, in Friday the 13th, you have an option to use a boat, which also needs not just your mere presence around, but again, fuel, as well as the propeller that you can find on the map. Already 2 ways to escape. but there are even more. Calling to the police is another one, and even this is two-step method. You gotta repair the phone box outside of the building using a fuse if you've managed to find it, and only after that you can make a call to the police. More than that, the cure isn't invulnerable and can be killed, but not by everybody. A certain character is needed for that. Behavior, don't even think about it, it's no. And as far as I know, you can also just wait for a certain amount of time, which is much less worthwhile including as a means to win, but yet. Without the last one, there are four completely different ways to escape. Meanwhile, how many ways does Dead by Daylight have? I wonder. 2, you would say, right? Gates and a hatch. But let's think about a hatch. A hatch is only available for one survivor. And if you think about it really well, it's needed so that one survivor just had an option to escape. Because if it didn't exist and you had to repair even one last generator, it would be just nearly impossible if the killer isn't AFK, of course. So this doesn't count. Now, let's move to the second game, Propnet. And you know what? Actually, there's nothing to talk about it, because there you also sit around there and click skill checks mindlessly, and that's it. That's all it takes. And after that, you gotta open the gates, as well as in Dead by Daylight. So the same stuff. Then what about last year? What you needed to do is to find a couple of key items, which might be disks to hack the computer and then open the gate, or you needed a fuel to repair, that is, move the lift in a certain position, then climb up on it and get access to the exit door, where again you gotta spin the mechanism. And there are more variations of items you need, it depends on the map you play as I get it, but the pattern of achieving the goal is pretty clear. 2 items, manipulating with them, and opening the gates. Separately, it's pretty simple, but what I really like about it is that every map has its own objectives. Dead by Daylight has never even dreamed about it, because every map has the same objective, obviously 5 generators, opening the gates. In last year, you have to find at least different variations of items, and I believe if Dead by Daylight had such a feature, it would be just immensely much cooler, don't you think? Well, now it's time to make a conclusion out of all this said. What the heck are you doing, my camera? What are you trying to kill me? Don't do that. Okay, sorry, my camera turned off, so it's the... Okay, sorry. What the f... What's wrong with you? My camera turned off, and if the frame isn't the same as it was, I'm sorry. So now finally about the conclusion. And mine is, Dead by Daylight lacks different ways to escape, and there should be more to make every match truly unique. Just imagine if DBD had more options, 2 or even 3 more, like Friday the 13th has. Would it be cool? And what if they were bound to specific maps? You know? Let's just imagine if playing on a new map from Resident Evil, for instance, you could escape via helicopter, where you would need to find details to repair it, fuel it, why not? Find some power supply box, maybe you would need to repair some gens to charge it up. Wouldn't this be cool? Well, maybe it's too complicated, I know, maybe it is. But even keeping the gameplay in the way it is now, why don't add something else to repair generators? There is in between steps to reach the objective. Let's say before repairing the generator, you would need to craft some items, some details or something else, and only then you would be able to interact with the generator itself. Craft system would be a good addition, don't you think? In already closed last year, for example, it was pretty simple, yes, of course. You always needed to find only one certain material, which is scrap, but yet it may be done in a more different way, because Dead by Daylight has a lot more people to work on it. And I think it would be really nice to have something similar to that in DBD. I believe it could be a pattern, ideally depending on what map you play. I guess you got my point. It's extremely boring to play when a killer doesn't really want to chase you, and if you think about it well enough, my complaint is turning around the state when you're out of chase. Because when you are, this is when things get much more entertaining. You're actually playing the game and not just AFK sitting, clicking skill checks. As it happens most of the times, because you have 3 other teammates that a killer might choose to go for. Sometimes there are even games where you're exclusively busy with gens. It's not interesting and it's boring. The whole point to have them is just to give killers some time, and that's pretty much it. And so behavior, make it somehow more engrossing, or come up with something else, please, because I don't like it, nobody likes it. Do you like it? Why does it even... is it... fuck it. Really, if you don't have that much time spent in this game as I do, just imagine how it feels to play Survivor and do the same thing over and over again. It would be okay if it was an interesting thing, but it's just, really, it's not even playing a game. I wouldn't call it like that. By the way, those 2 times I mentioned playing with a friend, what do you think I was doing practically the whole game? Just make your guess. I'll give you some more seconds. And I'll even give you a hint. It wasn't that much interesting. It wasn't that much boring, I wanted to say. You ready? I was eating the whole game. I was just repairing the gens and eating. And that was the only thing that kept my attention. Otherwise, I wouldn't even agree to play the second game. In the second one, I was bestowed with the killer's attention, and that didn't last very long. He realized that maybe I'm not the best target. I'm not British, I'm not even American, but I'm learning American. I wasn't the best target. Yes, target, not target. What the fuck? What's wrong with it? And after that half-a-minute chase, the only thing I had to do is you all well know what, repairing the gens. So, once again, my proposition, make repairing the generators more interesting or replace it, though I don't think they would go for this option, so make it somehow more complex. So it would make you do something else than just doing nothing, basically. Yes, it's a very good way to give killers a specific amount of time to kill survivors, but you know. And now, are there any issues with being chased? You know, it's fine. When you're in chase, you're always busy with not thinking when the other skill share comes out, but how can I outplay the killer? What can I do to make him misled in a way? It might be called as a single word, and that is mind game. And mind games in Dead by Daylight are very cool, but it happens only when you're in chase. And if you're playing at least somewhat good, then most of the killers probably won't go for you. And that's kinda a burden of being a high average player, I would call myself like that, because I'm not as good in Dead by Daylight as, I don't know, some Anzatara or somebody else. I'm just higher than average, and I'm completely fine with it. At least considering that I don't even play it anymore, basically. There are some more games that are more entertaining. And so, this whole time I've been talking about gameplay as a survivor, but what about the killer side? Well, you know what? It's once again fine. You know why? Because throughout the whole match, every second is filled with consideration of what to do, should I chase that guy, or maybe it would be better to push that chance, and so on. I don't see any crucial problems with that. There are some in terms of balance, but it's mainly when you're playing against a full 4-people party that play at least average or even better, though for me it doesn't really matter, because all I want is a good game. And to me, it feels better when I suck, because survivors know what they're doing, in opposite to when I play against complete pepegas that never turn their camera to me, draw pellets every single time, and just play bad. So, that's my vision of the game by now as a player who spent some time in it, and you know what? I guess it's weird cause the whole point of this is that I don't enjoy repairing gens. But I would really like to see something more complex than the way it is now and always been, actually. Like, you see, I'm the player who doesn't really care whether I win the game or not, also I'm not stimulated by blood points I earn, and I repeat myself, all I want is a good game. When I'm running from the killer, it feels much more different because I have the actual impact on the game, taking the killer's time for at least a couple of gens, while my teammates do their standard survivor's job. You get my point. Actually, I was thinking about what else is wrong with this game, and I think that if this problem was solved, it would be a big deal to returning the old players like myself. I guess that's it. That's gonna be it. I don't like repairing gens, do something about it. And basically this is exactly what I wanted to say. I could do that with one phrase, but I needed to explain myself for a bit. So, if you agree or not, we can have some talk in the comments if you want to. And I hope that all I've said makes sense, at least. And in the end, I would like to say that your support is kind of viable. Yeah, you know what I mean. See ya.